welcome. This is yet another installment of Cookie Pocket. I'm Christian, joined by Mitchell and Zach, as always. Today, we will discuss Liberal Arts, a 2012 indie film written, directed, and directed by, and starring Josh Radnor. Also starring Elizabeth Olsen from Weird World fame, and some other people. Zac Efron plays a magnanimous drifter.
Yep.
It's this is something of a rite of passage for Kenyan college students, because it was shot mostly on the Kenyon College campus in Gambier, Ohio, and Josh Radnor is an alumnus of the college, so a lot of this film is inspired by his experience and the sort of difficulty he had moving beyond his college years and into adulthood. So there's some questionable material here. We will examine it at length. Yep. But let's start it how we always do. General thoughts. Ratings out of 5.
Well, Christian, you seem to have gotten this impression that I really heavily disliked this film. I didn't. I thought this film was fine. But I do think I found a review on Letterboxd where they said it was like, it reminded them of like Columbus, which is another film which deals with like a similar concept, if it was written by somebody who thought they were important. And it does really read like that. Like I do like some of the walking and talking, and I like the location, and I like the ideas, and I even like a lot of the actors. I did not know Josh Radnor was on How I Met Your Mother. I found that out afterward, but then I went, oh, of course, and I like him on that show. And I really like Richard Jenkins, who plays the college professor in this film, to the point that I kind of wanted this movie to be about him more than about
interesting.
Ted? I forget what he's called.
Ted is his character in How I Met Your Mother.
Jesse.
There we go. But yeah, I just thought it was really aggressively fine. The direction doesn't really have a lot of flavor. The script really feels like it was written by someone who had something to say, man. And I find that really distracting. To me, it felt like all the worst bits of Kicking and Screaming, which is a movie that I already don't love.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up.
So yeah, it was okay. I don't have anything against it. And obviously, I'm going to give all the credit in the world to Josh Radnor for making the movie he wanted to make, especially when it seems he was a younger man when he made it, at least. I mean, he's no spring chicken by any means, but he's a younger fellow. So, credit to him for that and for making the movie he wanted to make. I just don't really know if that movie is for me. So 2 out of 5, mm-hmm. I thought it was okay, but not really my thing.
Fair enough. I somewhat concur. Mitchell, destroy me.
Christian and I had a discussion about something. I'm saying a discussion, a very minor argument about something. And he said I'm very fortuitous.
Oh, okay.
This movie was not made for me. I did not like this movie.
No.
This movie, in my opinion, is not very good. And I will explain why. I totally understand what Josh Radnor is trying to do. And like Christian said in his review, I don't feel like it was trying to be something it wasn't. And I really appreciate that. I just felt like what Zach said about he's just trying to get something off his, he's just trying to say the world's messed up, man. And trying to formulate this weird set of circumstances, and I don't know, I got the main message, and I understood that it kept getting hammered down in every conversation, and I understood the nostalgia versus the reality of growing up and everything. That's all well and good, but I just felt like it was just taking every individual circumstance to not feel real. And I know that sounds really basic and not super detailed, but I felt like he was trying to say this is what real life like he was taking an idealistic, a person with idealistic tendencies as a young person, and trying to say, no, this is real life within the frame of a very idealistic situation. And just kind of it's self-defeating, in my opinion. I just feel like you're using his decision to go back here for the professor's retirement, and like just to teach this lesson about this like sidebar. And like Zach said, I actually was interested in the professor and what happened with him, and I guess it was just like feeding the audience like he didn't make his retirement, he didn't get his position back and everything. Like, oh well, that sucks. And then like the older people were telling him that it gets even worse, and I felt like I wasn't really getting the impact of the fact that like later in life things get worse. I was not getting the nihilistic thing, and I think that really did not feel real when the suicide thing happened with Dean. When like his first, like the entire thing just felt like he was trying to say this one message about not reading books, like don't read books, man. And I get it's like, keeping the mood up and things like that. Maybe that's like one of the major intentions of it, but it just felt so out of place, and it felt so weird. Like he almost felt like he had to have that scene in there. And that was kind of the feeling I was getting the entire time. It just felt like Josh Radnor was trying to get formulate his own story based on his life experiences and being awkward and stuff. And I can appreciate that, but at the same time, I just don't think it's effective. So I gave it a 2 out of 5.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, this is about what I expected. And you are all still A+ English students in my eyes.
I hope so.
I am decidedly... I don't know how to explain this without roasting myself.
This is just like me.
Yeah, no, I gave this a 3 out of 5, and it's been a while since I saw this. I still had it on my family's Amazon account because I think my parents bought it when I found out that I was admitted to Kenyon, and we were like, oh, let's watch this movie now. And I remember all 3 of us liking it, which is interesting. And I just think it's a lot of it, like other films, it depends on the person watching it and like how much you're open to it. And I sort of talk about this in my review, not to say that you guys are closed off to it, because I don't think you are, but I think there's like, especially now, this idea of like granting artists the benefit of the doubt when they're presenting questionable material is sort of no longer, certainly not the default, and for some people not even a consideration anymore. I think this probably applies to comedy more than anything else, but really anything. And I feel all of the cringiness, all of the occasional self-importance, and it makes me wonder how this would read if he were to cast somebody else in the lead role or have somebody else direct it, because maybe then you get it just a little bit more filtered out so that it's a little bit more bearable and feels a little more grounded. But at the same time, I am ultimately more drawn to the earnestness of this than repelled by its secondhand embarrassment. And I just feel like the takeaway here is productive for me, at least. I think the ending probably has a couple too many bookends. Like you said, Mitchell, the sort of suicide scare is a little undercooked, and there's this weird like vacillating between you have to read important things versus stop reading important things altogether if it's making you feel bad. And but at the same time, I think it sort of contributes to the film's feeling of we're all just trying to figure this out. He's certainly far from figured out himself, and it's sort of more about the journey than the destination, but how much of a journey there is certainly debatable. And so I settled on a 3 out of 5. This is far from perfect, but I like Josh Radnor. I think he's a charming dude despite everything. So I enjoyed it.
Part of the issue, and part of why maybe some of its themes and ideas come across as cloudy, is there's a consistent thing throughout where having characters say things to each other in a quote-unquote cool and quippy way takes precedence over saying them in a way that makes total sense and that you would probably say them in reality. So like when he's meeting with Dean and he's talking about the books and he says, "Tell you what, don't read this book because he committed suicide." And you're like, okay.
I cringe so
and
bad.
That's meant to be like a meaningful moment where he's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say this thing that like you can figure out what I mean, right? But then I think in actuality he
Why are
would
you so
probably
nice
be
to
like,
me?
but I like that book, and you would be like, okay, if you like it, fine. But then you'd go into more detail and explain what you meant, and the movie doesn't do that.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't explain what it means.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't mention, I really liked Elizabeth Olsen in this. And I really thought she was endearing and pretty believable. I can kind of, like, she says a few things that are a little bit, like, more adolescent sounding than, like, later teens, in my opinion. But I don't know. We know a lot of 19-year-olds that are, man.
Yeah, no. Let's talk about that. I think
Yeah.
their relationship and the sort of will they, won't they discomfort is the crux of the film.
Mm-hmm.
She is 19. His character is 35.
A little bit
but-
older. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit older. And there's a scene where some arithmetic is done.
Yeah.
And there's I mean, he does visit her and they like kiss a couple times, but eventually he decides that he's uncomfortable with this and this is bad, and he sort of walks away from it when she wants to not walk away from it, let's say.
Yeah.
So what did you guys make of that, and what did you make of his what he does sort of after it? All of it. I don't know. What do you make of his relationship problems?
I don't have any reason to sympathize with it, and I really don't.
Mhm.
I mean, I can understand how other people might, and I can also understand how like that this is a very like common, like in general, this is a common event that happens. You know, you kind of get riled up into this thing, and you don't really know how to act until something finally has broken your moral values, and then you like confess and say, "This I shouldn't go away from who I really am," and you know, and then that causes a big rift. And to me, it's like, why didn't you expect that from the beginning? Like, if you were just self-aware for 2 seconds, you would have realized that. That was my aggravation the entire time when I was seeing him engage in that. And I guess the frustration is somewhat made up for after he goes through that journey with her and eventually finds the person, which kind of expected that, but you know, he finds someone else, and I like books, and same age, cool, and then that's how that turns out, and I think that's fine, and I didn't really have any complaints about that, and their final conversation they have at the end works for me fine, and but yeah, that was just very aggravating, and how I can understand, like, he was trying to be honest with himself, and I can appreciate that, but at the same time, there was no appeal in it for me. I just felt like he was really not thinking. I just don't understand how he could be so in the clouds so easily. And I understand that's part of the point. You know, he's coming back and revisiting, like we're watching. I almost said it's at World's End, right? Am I crazy? When they all go back together? What am I thinking of right now? I know I just saw the Amber Heard
Pirates
thing,
of the
and
Caribbean
I'm thinking
movie?
Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm thinking the come on, help me! I look dumb.
I don't know, man.
They
Three
all
flavors,
go back
Granado!
together.
3
Oh,
flavors.
yeah.
The World's End.
Yeah.
Whew. I
You
said
just got the first word wrong.
I said the. Just Zach, post. Just cut it.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Mitchell
Anyway.
said The World's End.
Yes. Yeah. So, but anyway, don't know how I made that comparison, but I was thinking about that. But yeah, I did not feel like it was somebody that was coping and trying to understand, like, I'm not an older person, or I'm an older person now, and I can't get caught up in this, like, you know, cloudiness of being a teenager and being a college student and everything, and I mean, and the youthful exuberance and whatever Eminem said, but yeah, I just didn't. I wasn't relating to it, in my opinion. I didn't like it very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in all honesty, the relationship aspect of the movie is not an aspect that I think doesn't work. I think the whole thing with, like, him realizing he's not 19 anymore is timed well and pulls off well, and I like the conversation he has with his old professor about that. None of that really bugs me. And the reason that doesn't really bug me in the way that that kind of thing does in other movies is that in this it's consistently played as something that's uncomfortable and weird,
Yeah.
And he knows that it's uncomfortable and weird. It's not like, I'm going to bring up Kicking and Screaming again. Kicking and Screaming, where a college graduate dates a 16-year-old, and it's just played as like, oh yeah, he's dating a 16-year-old. Whatever.
Yeah.
When that's weird.
Yeah.
Or it's not like a film we talked about on the podcast, Beautiful Girls, where, I mean, that's addressed in like a different way, but the way that it's addressed there is kind of archaic, and it's headed at like a different angle where it isn't always addressed as like a this is really uncomfortable type thing. Here it's like always addressed as an uncomfortable weird thing, and the kind of arc is about him recognizing like, yeah, this is uncomfortable and weird for a reason, and I shouldn't do this. So that totally works for me. I don't have a problem with the relationship aspect. The stuff about the movie that bugs me more is, I think, stuff that results from Josh Radnor writing and directing this and starring in it, and as a result, it's sort of feeling like a weird vanity wish fulfillment project. And I think some of those issues even come from the fact that it's filmed at Kenyon. If somebody else starred in it, and it was shot at a totally different college, and he was just like, well, I drew upon my own experiences at college when I wrote this, it wouldn't feel quite so self-inserty and so almost self-obsessed. Like, there's so much of an element of this that just feels like Josh Radnor going back to college, like, to make it, I don't know. Part of me would almost be interested in seeing like a behind-the-scenes documentary on the making of this film more than I would seeing the actual film, because this film feels like Josh Radnor's own personal like revelation that he's not 19 anymore and that he can't go back, that he can never go home again, like through making this film, than it does like just well, I wanted to make a movie about realizing that myself. It feels like he's sort of learning that as he makes the movie, which I think might be more interesting to watch than the movie that he made.
And I can see why Christian would appreciate that more. Not only because it's at Kenyon, because otherwise he would have just gave it a 2. But I think Josh Radnor is definitely projecting, and maybe that's another reason why it's uncomfortable for me, because he's being so honest with himself. So I guess that's kind of one of the main contentions for a lot of people, is how honest can he be with himself without just self-projecting what his own issues are, without trying to connect with as many people as possible, or trying to show a genuine experience, or like, I don't know, just the like I was saying before, like every scene kind of feels very orchestrated in a certain way to appeal to his own message that in and of itself is vague enough already, and then just adding to it just makes it more confusing and more like, you can get what you want from it, even though this is my like opinion and this is how I wanted to write it and this is how it comes out. You know, I definitely agree with Zach, but yeah, the relationship I think was fine. I liked their individual conversations, but like Zach said, I think the writing and him directing it, all that definitely a little bit bothersome.
Yeah, I think it mostly works for me because of her. And not just, like Zach said, the way that it's handled uncomfortably, but also that she's, like, as much a part of it as he is. Maybe not as much a part of deciding whether it is a thing or not as he is, because ultimately he's the one that says no. And she's not sort of in the same place as he is to accept that until later. But, I mean, she certainly has agency. I mean, she challenges his philosophy about untitled vampire books. And I mean, she makes an argument for them that is seemingly an argument, you know, and I think she's like more than just this like attractive remnant from his past and is actually a character unto herself. And I think that's important. And their relationship is not purely based in sexual desire coming from Jesse, Josh Radnor. So I think that's important. I will say, I don't think that the romance between Jesse and Bookstore Lady is bad, but I do think it's unnecessary. It sort of feels to me as though he has to end up with someone, and then there's this like uncomfortable beat with his former professor when he sleeps with her, which I think is kind of random. I think Allison Janney plays that really well, but it just feels odd. Like it feels like he really needed to have sex with someone for some reason in this movie, so he did. And
then middle finger, you old lady.
And so like, and then the ending when he's like kissing bookstore lady, and he's like, "You're so age appropriate," and I'm like, "Oh jeez, oh jeez." You wrote that and decided to say that and publish it for everyone that watches this to see you say that and write that. And, it's just, if you just trim it off, like just a little bit, I feel like it could be so great.
Yeah.
But as it is, I still appreciate the sheer embarrassment of it, even if it's not formally a great choice.
I think the whole ending romance with bookstore lady could literally been done in a look. He goes into the bookstore when he gets back. We see that whole, like, he's considering on the stoop. And then he goes to the bookstore, and then they just look at each other. And I don't know, maybe she smiles and he smiles back. Liberal arts. And then that comes up in the movie. Like, I don't think we need the whole, like, they go on 2 dates and then talk about their ages. And then, you're going to make a great old person. And, like, I thought, I don't really think we need any of that. Like, you can literally do it with a look, as many arrogant actors are eager to say a lot of the time.
I wonder if this would be better as like an 80-minute movie. It's short as it is. It's like hour 37, I think. Yeah. But, if you trim off the ending a little bit, trim off like maybe half of the things that are just a little bit too personally embarrassing. And I don't know. I'm curious. I do think there's a trend sort of, we've mentioned kicking and screaming a lot, and there's sort of like these Baumbach, Gerwig-esque projects where the pursuit is to try to cut as close to the real thing as possible, to the point that it's like as much a movie as it is a reflection of real life. And sometimes that's just pushed so hard. You're trying so hard to be authentic that it feels totally unnatural. Yep. Like we mentioned with the sort of hospital scene, and but then there are other moments where it does work for me, like when she's when he's pushing Zibby, what a name, when he's pushing Zibby about the vampire books, and she's like, you think it's fun to talk about what you hate, but it's not, and there's some value in enjoying something. And I am definitely the snob. I'm definitely the person saying that X is worthless. I mean, we all are. We're critics on a podcast, for goodness sake.
You're the one saying that magical mystery tour is worthless.
But I think she's right. I think there's value in like fun things, empty, vapid things, but fun things that get people through the day or get them to the next artful thing or emotionally important thing. So I'm glad that there's an exchange of ideas there instead of just uncomfortable relationship muddiness. So I don't know. I feel like I've addressed just about everything I want to address. Any final thoughts for you guys?
No real final thoughts on the movie, but I did want to final question you may or may not have the answer to, but I did want to say, if you want to see a shorter and possibly better film made in these locations, check out the music video to A Strong Way to Put It by Christian Maric, available on the City Mist Productions YouTube channel. Wow. Which, if you've seen this film, you'll recognize a lot of locations that appeared in this. I Rick Dalton gifed at many points throughout this movie when exterior locations showed up. I produced and edited that project, and it was fun to put together and then see similar buildings and pathways and whatnot in this movie. So yeah, check that out. And then I also wanted to ask, are the professors featured in this film, or the professor characters in this film, on record as being based on actual faculty at Kenyon?
Especially the romantics one.
Allison Janney is a Kenyon alumnus.
Nice.
The other the actors and the characters, I'm not totally sure beyond that. I feel like it would be really weird if Josh Radnor did go back and sleep with his romantics professor and then put it in the movie. Oh gosh, I don't even want to think about that. I have no idea. But thank you for the recommendations.
Yeah, and then
couldn't have done it without you.
Then watch Where Eagles Dare, twice after you watch that one once, because we're winning right now, I think.
They're both pretty close, yes.
Views,
Where
yeah.
Eagles Dare and that music video are the two most viewed videos on my YouTube channel. So two things that I didn't really have a big hand in creating are the most viewed things on my channel.
Stop it. You had a massive hand in both of those cookie jars.
Yeah. And my pockets.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really have any final thoughts. Man, I guess I don't go to Kenyon, so there you go. If you ever think about going to Kenyon, maybe if you watch this is 90% sure probably what you're gonna experience. Yep. I'm the most credible person here to say that. So 2 out of 5. It wasn't excruciating.
Zac Efron is great. I really like Zac
Efron's
Efron.
fine,
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
I like his hat.
Yes, I like his hat too. Mitchell, it's not far off. It is not far off.
Where's Elizabeth Olsen? She didn't go there.
Kenyon would be better if Elizabeth Olsen were attending Kenyon. This is
what dorm building is Dean in?
I wasn't sure because there's no way any of the dorms are actually that big. It looked like he was walking into Old Kenyon, but that room definitely isn't actually in Old Kenyon. This is a slippery slope. Final thoughts.
Historical accuracy, 2012.
I am glad this exists. I think it is perhaps a vanity project, but I feel the Radnor charm inside of me, and I must respond to it, and I must feel secondhand embarrassment and relate to it too much, despite its faults. And yeah, I think I will say what I say about a lot of other things we talk about here, which is, I would encourage you to engage earnestly with it, and I will understand if you don't like it. But, I think there is something here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, liberal arts. Week in review.
Alrighty.
I don't know.
Well, I can jump right in for week in review. This is yet another. I watched this earlier today. Week in review. I've been having a lot of those this season. I watched Sergio Solima's Revolver. So Sergio Celima is one of Italian cinema's 3 Sergios, as they're called, and the 3 directors who revolutionized the Western. So you've got Sergio Leone, who we've talked about on this program, Sergio Corbucci, and Sergio, how have I forgotten his name? Solima. So Solima directed the film Revolver, which is not a Western. It's sort of a crime thriller. And most of it plays kind of like Shane Black's The Nice Guys, right down to like feeling that like American and that slick in that industry. A lot of the time Italian films sort of feel like imitations of like British or American films that have done a similar thing. But Sergio Solima really creates movies that feel like they stand up right next to those. Essentially, Oliver Reed plays a prison warden whose wife is kidnapped, and he's told, "Hey, we'll release your wife if you let this one guy out of prison." And so he and this guy that he releases end up on sort of a comedy of errors adventure across the Italian cityscape and countryside as they become embroiled in this plot to kill this one guy that he was meant to release. All the while his wife is in captivity. And I had a lot of fun with it right up until the ending, when it unexpectedly becomes like massively tragic, and it like did not fit at all with my mental image of the film before the ending. So that knocked it down to a 3 for me. I definitely still enjoyed it, and maybe if I was to watch it again with that ending in mind, it would make a little more tonal sense to me. But I was like laughing along with it and having a whole lot of fun until at the end I had my heart ripped out of my chest. So kind of unexpected, but really well directed, got great actors, and I would recommend it. It's on Tubi for free if you're looking for it. 1973's Revolver.
Right on. I think it's time for Mitchell to take his headphones off again, perhaps?
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, Mitchell.
I'll think of whatever I have for week in review. I'll be back.
He's taking them off because I'm talking about part 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, of course. Well, this was the episode where a lot of big Star Wars fans got what they were hankering for. We see a sabered encounter between, spoiler alert, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, it sure happened. I did not dislike this episode by any means. I landed on a 7 out of 10 as opposed to the 8s I gave to the first two parts. And I don't know. I think this show is facing an impossible challenge where Anakin is Darth Vader now. And to have that emotional connection between Hayden's performance as Anakin and Ewan's performance as Obi-Wan present in this new era is kind of impossible through James Earl Jones's fantastic voice and the iconography and costuming and body language of Vader. It's just so totally different from Anakin, and I guess that's just something that I as a viewer struggled with. And I'm still seeing some of the seams in the TV budget. They do a lot with it, but it's still just not a big budget Hollywood movie. It just isn't. And there are scenes where the setting is less dressed up, and it to me at least it feels noticeable. And I kind of wish that they gave it the movie budget. Young Leia is still fantastic. Moses Ingram's third sister, Inquisitor, is really interesting, and I think mythically satisfying because a lot of her dynamic path sort of mirrors Anakin's. And there's a nice little bit of character work with droids because Leia continues to treat the droids like people, while a lot of the people are like, oh, they're just droids, they don't understand X, Y, Z. And there's a loading droid in this one that Leia treats like anyone else, and the droid is sort of integral in helping Obi-Wan escape. And it's a nice little bit of character work for the droid, who never speaks, and it sort of reminded me of WALL-E. I don't know. There's sort of like an ennui, something I feel like is missing from the show right now. And but I'm at the same time I'm enjoying it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not as in love with Star Wars as I was when I was 12. I don't know what it is. But I think it's well made with reasonably good performances. And I hope they find a way to give us more Anakin somehow. I'm not sure how that's possible. But 7 out of 10. I'll keep updating the viewers as I watch the other parts, I'm sure.
So I feel like I'm kind of becoming the co-host of these Obi-Wan update sections. But doesn't Darth Vader and Obi-Wan meeting in the show and having lightsaber duels kind of detract from the whole New Hope thing of when we last met, I was the Padawan and you were the Master?
Well, that is certainly a point. There's been a great deal of discussion around this. The other issue is when does Obi-Wan find out that Anakin is Vader? That's addressed in the show.
Okay, all right.
Because otherwise, like, how would he have any clue who that is?
Uh-huh.
I was certainly of that position at first, Zach. It's very tenuous. I don't know. It's all from a certain point of view. I don't think it's totally breaking that segment, but it definitely grants it a different weight. I'll have to see the rest of the show to really answer that properly, though.
All right. I guess now is when we wave at Mitchell.
I can tell you guys are done.
Yes.
Do I have to review my week and the review of weeks in my week in review?
I mean,
You're
you don't
welcome
have to. If you don't want to, we can move right on. But
wouldn't that be the first time?
It would,
Maybe.
but there's the first time for everything, you know.
No, not the 67th, man. Not the 67th. I'm just gonna do Zenzucht. Zenzucht. Ramstein. I'm sorry.
Oh, I see.
This is what you deserve.
Okay.
Yeah, 1997. Usually considered one of their best albums because it has Du Hast in it, and Engel is amazing. The whistling, everyone loves the whistling. Till's voice is very, very deep, and the guitar chugging is very intense now. It feels more inspired by a lot of the heavier, darker undertones of the 90s more than kind of the thrashier, synthier, almost like 80s in a way inspired first album, Herzlide. But Sehnsucht means longing, by the way, just so everyone knows.
And is this album 2?
Yep, this is their second album.
Okay.
Man, I mean, it feels like they they finally understood like why their lyrical content was important to people, and even if you don't speak German, the more you look into it and the more you like realize, you know, a lot of the material is actually taken from the lead singer Till's poems that he wrote himself. And there's a lot of just double meanings, and just, you know, obviously there's going to be a mixture of like songs that are very intricate and symbolic, and then there's going to be like songs like Buch dich, which means bend over, which is kind of just insane, just you know. And then he's doing the Till hammer in concert, you know. You can definitely feel like some of these are like, wow, this would be great in concert, and other ones were like, you know, I can sit on the bus and think about my life and not understand what they're saying, but still understand what like the meaning is behind the tone. And I think it's really hard to pull off a lot of the time, especially in modern music, because I've shown a couple of these songs, or I don't know, a couple of people have listened to these songs at my request, and they're like, I understand what they're saying, and even though I don't understand what they're saying, and I think that's a pretty unique thing. But now they're finally picking it up, and I really feel like the lyrical content has improved here, and some really memorable synth riffs in this, on top of the usual guitar chugging, and everyone obviously knows Du Hast for that, and the chorus is very easy to sing along to as well if you don't know German, so I highly recommend it to everyone, and I have no reservations about that. You're welcome.
Okay.
Is it time to put on the suit and go a few rounds, Zach?
I guess so, yeah.
Or take off the
nobody's
suit
packing
and
on the
go
Kenyan
for
campus.
That's cool.
Oh, right. Oh, man. No, there isn't. Just books.
Just
and
books.
And sadness.
Yeah, so this is the Marvelous Cinema Tour. This time I'm talking about Iron Man 3. And unfortunately, I think this is probably the first film in the Marvelous Cinema Tour that's gone down in my rankings kind of significantly with this rewatch. Because my memory of Iron Man 3 was that it was my favorite of the Iron Man films, and even the best of the Iron Man films. I mean, it was directed by Shane Black, and I love Shane Black. Like, how could it not be? But I think a lot of the issues here do come with the script, where it feels like it went through a lot of drafts, and it feels like things were stuck on as it went, including the Mandarin, because apparently I was doing some reading into this, and I know people have complained about the Mandarin in this, and how the Mandarin, I'm going to spoil Iron Man 3 for anybody who is listening. This movie is almost a decade old at this point, so but the Mandarin in this, at least the Mandarin that people recognize, is not the actual Mandarin. He's an actor, and I've heard a lot of people complain about how, it was going to be the actual Mandarin, but they wrote him out because of studio meddling or for political reasons, and apparently this was not the case at all. Apparently this started as an adaptation of the Extremis arc, which is kind of most of the movie, and then at some point Shane Black and Drew something, I want to say Drew Brees, but that's a football player, and his script writing partner wrote in the Mandarin reveal. Drew Pierce. They wrote in the Mandarin reveal as a joke, thinking that they would be told to remove it, and then they were like, oh yeah, we like that, let's keep that. So the Mandarin was just tacked on at some point and wasn't really part of the plot initially. But yeah, there's also there's Marvel films where I don't think the dialogue is great, but there are scenes in this film where the dialogue literally does not make any sense. So there's, I mean, and this has become kind of a well-known scene on the internet, but there's a scene where Tony Stark, he crashes in Tennessee, I think, and he drags his armor into a barn, and this little kid walks in with a spud gun and a newspaper and goes, who are you, mister? Stick him up.
Tony Skywalker.
And so he's like, oh, who are you? And Tony goes, I'm Tony Stark, I'm Iron Man. And then the kid holds up the newspaper and goes, actually, you're dead. And the headline says that he's dead. And then he gives him the newspaper and he walks over to the suit. And then later in the scene, Tony Stark says, well, what's your name? And the kid tells him his name, like Timmy or whatever. And then he goes, and what should I call you? Like, and what's your name? And he goes, I'm the mechanic. So throughout the course of this scene, the kid didn't know his name, knew who he was, forgot who he was, and then learned who he was again under a different name. Like, there's bits like that don't make any sense at all. But I will say, I think this has the best action in the MCU. I really love, in the action scenes in this movie, how there's a real dedication to putting Tony Stark on the back foot. In every fight in this movie, he only has part of a suit, or he's not wearing a suit, or he has a broken suit, or a prototype suit, and he has to improvise. He has to shoot a piano at somebody to use it as a weapon. He has to wait on bits of his suit showing up, so he has to stall for time. And I think things like that are a really interesting way to differentiate the battles in this, especially because Iron Man a lot of the time is such a capable character who has a tool for everything. And here, taking those tools away from him, I think really helps to flesh out who Tony is in a state of conflict, which I think is good. I really think that fleshes him out through the fight scenes and kind of develops the plot through the action, which is what Shane Black does really well. But for the plot, I had to give this a 3 out of 5. I was tempted to go 4 in some of the fight scenes, but it's got to be a 3. So this was better than the Avengers for me, but not as good as Captain America. So it's kind of a middle-ranking MCU movie for me right now. So far, nothing's topped Iron Man 2.
Wow.
Next up is Thor: The Dark World, which...
Oh, boy.
I know everybody hates this one. I remember watching it on a plane when it came out.
Oh, my gosh.
and thinking, that wasn't great, and the ending was really silly. But I liked it more than the first Thor. And I also remember hearing that Christopher Eccleston played the villain and thinking that was really
Eggman.
cool.
Yes.
Even though Christopher Eccleston later in an interview said that he thought the movie was utter crap and he felt like Judas for making it.
Oh, jeez. Goodness.
So yeah, but I know this one has an appalling reputation, so I'm interested to see if my opinion flips from kind of positive to wholesale negative. So if you want to see, tune in next time to the Marvelous Cinema Tour.
Huh, interesting. I never minded Dark World that much. Okay, what is it now?
The rundown.
Yes, okay. Yes, that thing. Yeah, Zach, you're going to start this one, I think.
Okay.
Yes, you are. Mitchell, are you ready to go to the liberal arts campus one more time?
I'm a computer science major.
You're going anyway.
History minor, but I'm already fulfilled that. So.
Well, you know, if you ask Kenyon admissions, the STEM programs are actually not that bad. So
that's what they said about Loyola. All right, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, go.
Great shirts.
3 to 5.
He that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow.
2 out of 5.
A strong way to put it, locations on the big screen.
4 to 5.
Working in admissions.
2 out of 5.
Untitled vampire books.
2 out of 5.
Stealing a stranger's dirty laundry.
3 out of 5.
A roundabout, mostly unsatisfactory explanation of improv.
4 out of 5.
Elizabeth Olsen as Zibby.
4 out of 5.
Walking and talking.
2 out of 5.
Zac Efron as Stoner Drifter.
3 out of 5.
A basket of fries.
3 out of 5.
When I was, she was.
2 out of 5.
When I am, she will be.
2 out of 5.
Josh Radnor writing himself as a likable guy.
2 out of 5.
Slightly off-kilter drone shots.
2 out of 5.
Classical music mix.
3 out of 5.
Getting hand-me-down shirts from your old professor.
1 out of 5.
A nervous system ill-equipped to contain such immensity of feeling time.
2 out of 5.
Oh, there's some really good ones left off here. Okay.
I'm glad.
Well, oh shoot! I wanted to say I really like the one bit where she's talking about how she perceived him as like a shortcut to becoming an adult, and
that was pretty good.
I really appreciated that, and I felt like that's something that I felt like wanting to find a shortcut to get there because you feel like you're ready for it, even though you're not really, and whoever is, just a nice little moment there. Yeah. That was that. Zach, are you previewing our next episode?
Yeah, I am. Okay, so I feel like we've agreed a lot this season, and I feel like if we've disagreed, it's generally been pretty courteous.
Yeah, we're too nice to each other now.
But next time, I'm prepared to put the gloves on because I'm recommending some Italian horror. We're going to be watching and talking about the film The Beyond, directed by Lucio Fulci, our homeboy who directed Zombie 2, the first film that I think ever made Christian doubt my qualifications as a film major.
I'm ashamed to have pirated that.
As you can tell from what you're hearing right now, dear viewers, I'm going to turn the whole podcast against me for the rest of the season. Maybe. Or, they might love it.
Hey,
Zombie 2 is even worse than Suspiria, Zach.
So, tune in next time if you want to hear me make these guys suffer while we talk about The Beyond. You want to close us out, Christian?
Oh. You know what, Zach? I'm suddenly realizing that I have hands and legs and a torso. And that's all I have to say about that.
Good night, Gracie.
This has been something.
Ciao.
Pray for me, dear viewer.